Now here's Brian with today's Real Estate Show.
Good morning, Charleston. Welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Pleasure to be hosting you guys this morning. 13 years I've been on this radio station, helping you guys better understand the real estate market, helping you understand the trends within it and the process of buying, selling, and investing in real estate so that as you enter into a phase where you're considering buying or selling or investing in real estate, you're an informed consumer, right? You've taken this information into context, understanding, of course, that a lot of what I share is market-wide. Every situation is different. Every approach we have with our clients is tailored to their goals, their area, their market, their price range, so on and so forth. So we're going to cover a lot of ground today. I want to first start with just where we are as a market right now. There have been some changes. Want to make sure you guys are aware of that, whether you're a buyer or a seller or investor. I want to talk a little bit about the show that we did last week, which we got incredible response from, where we had a market statistician come in. We hired them out of Atlanta to analyze our specific market in Charleston, South Carolina, and to look at the impact that a seller's asking price, at least initially, the impact that asking price had on their bottom line. Ultimately, answering the question of, does it make sense to price the home closer to what it's worth or price it high and leave room for negotiations like so many folks do? In fact, the statistics on that show that the majority of people in this market that put their home on the market for sale are overpriced, and over 25% of them don't sell the first time. So if you want more information on that show, it was packed full of information. We shared a report. We shared a guide. If you didn't get your hands on that report or guide, you can simply text the word report to 843-800-0065, and we'll send that over to you. It's about a 30-page analysis on our specific market, broken up by price range, and just kind of looks at the market in a new way. A lot of statistics that I shared are statistics that are not publicly available. We're really the only company that has that. So I want to piggyback off of that and talk about the impact that marketing has on the sale of your house. We talked about pricing. Pricing, of course, is a function of marketing. So I want to talk about that. And then I want to talk about, switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about if you're a buyer. How do you take advantage of some of the uncertainty in this market, some of the stagnation in this market? So again, if you missed that show last week, we've got all of our videos on YouTube. We've got podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, soon to be iHeartRadio. So we're, anywhere you want to look, watch, listen, we're there. Just search for the Brian Beatty team and you'll find us. In fact, if you want to reach out to us personally, 843-800-0065 is my number. You can call or text me on that, 843-800-0065. Or you can check out our website, listingsincharleston.com. So let's talk a little bit about the market. It's been sluggish, okay? Our January numbers came in just a few days ago, and at surface value, they really don't look that much different than kind of every other January. But there are some underlying trends within the market that I want to make sure that you're aware of, whether, again, you're a buyer or a seller or an investor. And the first thing to really take into consideration is the fact that things are just taking longer to sell. We went from a days on market last year of 39 to now 50. Okay, so it's taking longer to sell. And that number has been creeping up really every month. January, typically a little bit of a slower month compared to others, of course, just based on seasonality and demand within the market. But what we're also seeing is that new listings that are hitting the market starting to grow, right? We're starting to see an increase in overall supply of homes for sale. When we look at some of the other numbers just market-wide, we can, arrive at the idea that supply is outweighing demand right now, even though prices have remained fairly flat, if not up just a tiny bit, just depends on where you are in the price range you're in. But things are taking longer to sell. Because they're taking longer to sell and we're not keeping pace with the number of homes that are hitting the market, our month's supply of inventory is growing. Now, I say that a lot on this show, month's supply of inventory. And for those of you that are maybe listening to the show for the first time that haven't heard me explain this, month supply of inventory is essentially how we measure the health of a real estate market. Okay, it helps us determine whether we're in a buyer market, a seller market, or just a balanced market where price increases are fairly in line with inflation. Well, the inventory of homes is growing. Properties that are going under contract are slower than they were this time last year, and that's what's causing month supply of inventory to go up. So we went from 2.3 months supply of inventory to 2.7 months supply of inventory, comparing January of last year to January just last month. Now, that's a 17% increase. We've seen that continue to rise, but still, we're at 2.7 months supply of inventory. Now, of course, that's going to be different depending upon the price range and area that you're in, but market-wide, we're still in a seller's market, which is why prices are fairly stable right now. They're not really increasing, which frankly is why I read off those statistics on last show, because a lot of folks are still kind of overpricing their property. They're putting their home on the market for more than what recently sold, and the demand just isn't quite there to support that, to support appreciation in most areas, in most markets, in most price ranges. But the other thing that's really just killing the market right now, or slowing it down, I should say, is our interest rates, right? We were really hoping when we were doing our 2025 projections a few months ago that interest rates would be in the sixes, right? On their way to low sixes, maybe even high fives by the end of the year. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure we're going to see interest rates with a 5 in front of them this year. It's so hard to predict and obviously too soon to tell, but we need some pretty clear movement downward in order to spark some activity in the market. What that's doing ultimately is lowering the affordability of homes. We use something called an affordability index to determine how affordable real estate is in our area. And essentially what that statistic is a measure of the cost of owning real estate in relation to median incomes in our area. So in other words, an affordability index of 100 would mean that a buyer earns enough money to afford the median priced home in our market with 20% down at today's interest rates, right? So in other words, homes are exactly affordable based on median income in our area. Right now we're at a 73. So that means that a large portion of our market just is out of the market. They cannot afford to buy a house right now. They're seeing rents go up. They're being pushed, I think, further and further away from home ownership. Or for those that are just kind of sitting on the fence, waiting for the right property, waiting for the right deal, really trying to beat up a seller, things aren't getting much better for them. What is happening in the background, though, is that sellers are becoming a little more frustrated, a little more desperate, a little more motivated because things are taking longer to sell, because they're not getting as many showings as they should be getting, because demand is just a little weaker. Again, it all revolves around affordability right now and availability of inventory. So, our market, a little sluggish to be expected for January. But let me just tell you what's going on in the 3 different counties that we typically cover. Of course, there's Colleton County and Georgetown County and so on and so forth. We won't get into that on this show, but if you've got a property out there, we, of course, service those areas. We sell real estate all over the state, so happy to help. But let's talk first about Berkeley County for single-family detached homes. They are down 1.3% in terms of new properties hitting the market. Closings are down 3%. The median sales price in Berkeley County is basically $405,000. That's up from $402,000 this time last year, so not much of a change there. They're getting 97% of their asking price, and their days on market went from 36 to 55. They have a 23.5% increase in available homes for sale. This time last year, we had about 750. Now we've got 940. Okay. In Dorchester County, new listings are down almost 20%, which is really interesting. Closings are up 6%. The median sales price is up 3%. You're getting 96.6% of your asking price on average. Days on market went from 41 to 43. And inventory of homes for sale actually went down a little bit. Went from 493 this time last year to 467. So that's down about 5%. In Charleston County, We've seen about an 11% increase in new listings. Closings are up 5%. The median sales price is up 6%. We're at $686,000 as a median sales price in Charleston County, which is adjusted from $647,500 this time last year. Properties are getting 95% of their asking price. Days on market went from 33 to 45. And inventory, overall availability of homes for sale went from 837 this time last year to over 1,000 now, 1,046. So that's up 25%. So obviously, you look at areas like Dorchester County, which has had a decrease in new listings, and you compare that to Charleston County that has a pretty big increase in availability of homes for sale. That's why I say that markets are different. If you're interested in getting an analysis on your specific property, or if you're a buyer and you're thinking about buying a home in a specific area and price range, let me create a report for you that helps you better understand how much equity you have in your home or how much negotiability on average you might expect if you're going to buy a home in that area. We're happy to put that information together for you at no cost, free of charge, of course. And of course, for those of you that are thinking about buying or selling a home, we'd love the opportunity to earn your business. We've got a lot of great incentives right now. So feel free to reach out to me if you'd like more information on that. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check out our website, listingsincharleston.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty, and thanks again for joining me as we're talking about the real estate market, the real estate process, informing and educating you as a consumer so that when it comes time for you to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you know the right questions to ask, you know what to expect, and you win, right? We like to win. I'm a competitive person. So I want you guys to win as well. So thanks for listening to the show. Just quick contact information. If you guys have questions, maybe I can help with something, or of course you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, we'd love to earn your business. We'd love to tell you about some of the incentives that we're offering right now. You can reach me by calling or texting. It goes straight to me, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or you can check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. So last week, and I reran that show, so you heard it for 2 weeks in a row, we had a market statistician that we hired out of Atlanta take a look at our specific market, analyzing the trends within it, and providing us with some new data points that are just not available to us in our market. We do, Charleston Realtors, they do a great job of providing us with a lot of data, but they don't provide us with some of the data I shared, which specifically revolved around the impact on your bottom line associated with your initial asking price. And so I want to springboard that into a discussion about marketing, because when you're going to sell your house and you're going to invite a real estate agent over to talk with you about their marketing, the process, what they should list your home for, how long it's going to be on the market, what you can expect to sell it for, so on and so forth. So many sellers, the marketing portion of it almost goes in one ear and out the other, because all they really care about is getting the most money for their house. And it's natural, right? I understand that. I understand that perspective from a seller. I've been selling real estate for 20 years. I've successfully sold a seller's house over 1,200 times. So I understand the process that the seller goes through and the talking points that are important to them, and ultimately the decisions that they make and how that process works in their mind. I want to really harp on the fact that the price is incredibly important. And for those of you that, again, missed that show, I'd encourage you to go on YouTube, take a look at that. I share a lot of really important data there that, frankly, no other company has, because no one else has hired a market statistician like we have. So go and check out that show, but here are the very, very brief cliff notes. For the properties that did not have to adjust their asking price in order to get it under contract and ultimately sold, for those that didn't take a price reduction, they sold for 100% of their asking price, and it only took a week to sell. If a price reduction was necessary to increase demand and ultimately sell the property, it sold for almost 7% off of their original asking price, and the days that it took to get it under contract went from 7 to 78. That's a big jump. Now, on top of that, of course, let's just say that the home is vacant, right? You've got carrying costs, taxes, insurance, mortgage payments, landscaping, utilities. All of those things get taken into consideration, which is why pricing is a very important part of the conversation. It is a function of marketing. And the harsh reality is that no amount of marketing will fix an overpriced house. Buyer's comparison shop. And the people that are serious are fairly well educated. Now, they might be educated in their own mind. You know, plenty of people out there have their own preconceived notions about what's going on in this market. I try and do a good job, I think, on this show of providing you with actual information, data, and removing the buzz associated with trying to get clicks and likes and subscriptions and all that good stuff, right? I'm just here to deliver the truth. And the reality is, if your home is overpriced, buyers are going to know. And they're going to take that into consideration when making an offer. The longer you stay on the market, the more negotiability that buyer is going to have. So it's important to get it right out of the gate. Asking the right price is the first obvious step. But in reality, it's going to start before that. You know, your success with the agent that you hire starts the moment that agreement is signed with the agent, because the really good ones are going to have a marketing plan that they're going to enact before that property ever hits the market. So I first want to just talk about the two different paths you can take as a seller. Our listing agreement in South Carolina allows for two different paths. Path number one is the traditional path, right? We put it on the MLS, we put it online, we market it to everybody in the world. We publicly broadcast that information. The other route to take is something called a brokerage exclusive listing, where we are not allowed to do any form of public marketing. We can't even put a sign in the yard. What we can do, however, is communicate with all of the people in our internal database. And because the listing is technically a listing of the brokerage, we can communicate with every other agent in our brokerage, and they can then communicate with all of their buyers to see if they might have somebody interested. So this is, you know, in my mind, an incredible opportunity that a lot of sellers don't even know exists, something a lot of agents don't talk about. And the reason for that is because a lot of agents don't have big databases of buyers that they can market the home to internally before it actually becomes publicly available. Our team has a database of 28,000 people. In fact, we've got another database of over 400,000 people. We've got a massive amount of people that we can market your home to internally. And the great thing for you as a seller is that between the time you hire that agent and the time that that property ultimately goes on the market, right, we can market the home internally to our database. There is no public record of the property being marketed for sale in that time frame, which means there's no days on market that starts to accrue and count against you. So a lot of folks right now that are thinking of maybe selling their home in the spring or trying to get out and settled before school starts next year, which is a large portion of people, my suggestion would be to have that conversation with an agent now or pretty soon, and then allow them to market the property internally until we put the property on the official market for sale. It does a few things. Number one, those calls to buyers are usually very welcomed calls because every buyer wants what no other buyer can get. And that's information on properties that are off market, but that are available, right? Every buyer out there wants access to listings that no one else knows about. It gives them a competitive edge. As a seller, however, if you're going to introduce that property to a buyer before you've had the opportunity to market it to the world, then you can be really strict on the sales price that you accept from that buyer before it hits the market. In other words, if I have a property that's coming on the market, and let's say we need to do a few things to the house. We need to get it ready. We need to declutter. We need to touch up the landscaping, whatever it is. There's going to be a gap in time between the day that we're hired and the day that that property hits the market. That should not be just stagnant time. That should be an opportunity for you as a seller to dangle the carrot in front of a buyer and then hit them with the stick, which is, hey, if you want to buy this property, this is the purchase price. Now, of course, it's up to you as to whether you want to make that price negotiable or not. But from a seller's perspective, from my perspective, it's pretty easy for us to have conversations with buyers where we get to say, hey, we wanted to give you this opportunity first. We noticed you've been looking at homes in this area and price range. If you want to purchase this property, this is the purchase price, because the seller is giving you the opportunity to buy it before we market it to everybody else, preventing you from potentially getting into a multiple offer situation. Right? So that conversation works really well. Now, some sellers decide to never put their home on the market publicly. They don't want a bunch of showings. They don't want a bunch of agents, going through their house. And there are so many reasons why sellers choose to do what we call a brokerage exclusive listing or an off-market listing. If you want more information on that, or if you want to do that two-stage process where you're not quite ready to put the home on the market, but you want some activity, whether it's bringing you a buyer before it actually hits the market, or at least creating enough interest so that by the time you hit the market, you already have a few showings stacked up, it's an incredible way to go for a seller. So if you want more information on that, 843-800-0065 is my number. You can call or text 843-800-0065. You can reach out to me through our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or you can send me an email if you'd like, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. That's brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So when we come back, I want to talk more about marketing and specifically about buyer attraction, right? It's a big part of the process. A lot of agents try to skim over it because they don't frankly have a plan or a budget to market your property proactively to potential buyers for your house. So I want to talk about that process and how important that is to the overall process of selling your house. So stick around for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. I always like to take a moment and just say how much I appreciate those of you that listen to this show. We've been doing this for 13 years, been selling real estate locally for 20. We've done about $1 billion worth of sales volume here locally. And so I appreciate those of you that call and give us the opportunity to earn your business, and those that just have simple questions. Maybe you need a good recommendation for a contractor, or you just want to talk through a process. We've done everything from help folks sell their home as a for sale by owner and receive nothing to, of course, selling hundreds of homes based on listeners of the show. So appreciate those of you that reach out. Now, I want to talk about marketing your house and the conversation that you should have with your listing agent about what they're going to do. That really, at the end of the day, one of the most important questions you should have as a seller is, how are you going to find buyers for my house specifically? What are you going to do? Now, let's talk about that a little bit, because most agents, the vast majority of agents, if we're being honest, don't have big marketing budgets. They don't sell a lot of real estate. They work with folks that they know. A lot of them are part-timers. To be in the top 10% of agents in our market, I think you need to sell 16 homes a year. It's tough to make a living if you're selling less than a home a month, unless you're selling $1 million properties. And there are very few agents that are just selling, $1 million house a month. So when we're having conversations with sellers about what we're going to do to promote their house for sale, I want to talk about what most agents do. I want to talk about some of the add-ons that I think are really important, especially given all of the technology that's available to us now and how much that has changed over the past few years. So what most agents do, well, let me put it this way. What every agent is going to do is put your property in the MLS. As soon as that property goes into the MLS, which only real estate agents have access to the MLS, right? But once that property is entered into the MLS, it then gets broadcast, right, through a syndication to every major website out there: Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Redfin, Homes.com, you name it, right? There's thousands of websites that your home is going to go on just because it was entered into the MLS. So there's no difference in agents and their experience and their marketing as it relates to the way in which your home is going to be broadcast to all of these public sites, right? What's really important to understand is that you, as a seller, want your agent to control the flow of information as much as possible. In other words, if we're the ones marketing your house, if we're the ones that represent you and your best interests and your bottom line, then we want to do everything possible to be the person that has the conversation with the interested agent, right? We want to be the person that tries to communicate with that buyer about the value of your house, get them excited enough to come and see it and make an offer. But that's not the way most of these websites work. Let me pick on Zillow for a minute, and you can test this on your own. Go pick a random house in a random part of the country, click on contact agent, and see if you talk to the listing agent. The answer is going to be no, because that's not how Zillow makes money. Zillow makes money by charging real estate agents on a monthly basis for a percentage of the leads that are generated in a specific zip code, right? So you're basically buying a percentage of market share to get leads in that zip code. It has nothing to do with me getting my leads on my listings. Zillow has removed the ability for that to happen. Anytime a buyer inquires through something like Zillow, it's going to some random agent that's paying for leads in that zip code, right? So Zillow used to allow us to have conversations with the buyers that are interested in our listings, but they took that away. So all of these public sites, some of them are different. Some will actually send that inquiry directly to the listing agent. Most won't, because they've realized that that's an income-producing function of their website. And real estate agents are always up in arms about Zillow being this big, bad company. But they figured out a way to monetize it. And frankly, we handed them the keys. We gave them the data. They told us they'd never be a brokerage. Well, of course, now they're a brokerage. Not only that, but they're also buying real estate, which has proven for them to be a money loser, which I think is ironic given the fact that they're buying properties based on their Zestimate. It didn't work out too well for them. You can read up on that on your own if you'd like. But I don't want to get too much into Zillow's estimates and all that stuff. This is about marketing. So again, if you're going to sell your house, regardless of the agent that you hire, it's going to go on all these websites. Some of those websites are going to forward that buyer's information directly to the listing agent. Most will not. So at the end of the day, it's about lead conversion, right? As a agent that focuses and specializes in marketing, we want to create an opportunity for us to have those conversations with those buyers, right? We need to turn them in from online shoppers into a showing, into an offer. Obviously, that process is very easy if you're just going to kick your feet up on your desk and wait for other agents to show the listing, right? That's honestly what most agents are going to do. They're going to put it in the MLS. Maybe they put it on their own Facebook page saying, hey, I've got a new listing, which basically is just going to their friends, right? Whether it's high school or college or, people that they know. I know maybe 2% of the people that, maybe even not even that, of the people that I'm Facebook and Instagram friends with, right? It's like 15,000 spread between the two. So 2% is probably too big a number. But anyways, they put it on their Facebook page or their Instagram page. It's just all they're doing is it's a little bit of a brag post, right? Because their friends aren't necessarily buyers for your property, which again begs that initial question. What are you going to do, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, to find buyers for my house? The reality is what most of the agents in any market are going to do is just wait for other agents to show the house. They take nice photos, they put it on the MLS, it goes on all these websites, they put it on their Facebook page. Who cares? Maybe they do an open house. Open houses are interesting. Let me focus on that for just a moment. When we had all these changes that occurred back in August of last year, where buyers now are required to sign an agreement with an agent before that agent can show them a property, we saw a slowdown in the number of showings, right? Really what it did was it cut out a lot of the looky-loos, a lot of the tire kickers. The folks that just want to explore their curiosity don't really want to commit to a real estate agent. Understandable. A workaround to that is open houses. You don't have to sign an agreement with an agent to go and see an open house. And I think buyers are wising up to that. They're realizing that, look, I don't want to be hounded by real estate agents. I just want to go and see this house and see if it's something I might be interested in. And if it is, then I'll start to do some work on my end. Maybe I need to sell my house. Maybe my lease is coming due in a few months. Whatever the case might be, a lot of people use open houses as like the precursor event to determine whether or not they're actually serious either about that house or about the process of buying a house. if the agent that you're working with is really good at marketing, they understand that open houses should be treated as a marketing event. So just like marketing your house for sale, the question is, how are they going to promote the open house to get people through the door? And not just anybody, right? Because traditionally open houses have been nothing more than a lead generation machine for real estate agents. Very few people buy homes from open houses. Well, that's starting to change a little bit as these rules have now changed. And I think you'll see over time that more homes will be sold through open houses because, again, buyers don't want to commit to an agent just to go and see a house and dip their toe in the water to see if they're serious. So whether it's marketing your home to find buyers or it's an open house, at the end of the day, your agent needs to understand how to promote your house, the marketing event, which is the open house, to the right buyers at the right time with the right message. So the question is, how do we do that? One thing that we have done for several years on my team at this point, I think going on 7 years now, is we hired a company out of California that basically has access. Well, there's plenty of companies out there that have access to all that we do online, right? Everything we do online these days is tracked, right? There is a digital blueprint on all of us out there based on our demographics, our geographics, and our online behaviors, right? Our shopping behaviors. That data, whether you like it or not, is sold to companies to promote products to you that fit your online behaviors and your demographics and geographics. I mean, it's all data that's used to promote products on a daily basis. Real estate is no different. It's just that most agents either don't know how to do it or don't have the budget to do it because it's a costly event to market a home the way that I'm about to explain that we do. The idea is this. When I walk into a house, I am asking myself what type of buyer I think would purchase this house. Is it a first-time home buyer? Is it a move-up buyer? Is it somebody downsizing? Is it an empty nester? Is it a second home? Is it a vacation property? Is it an investment property? All of these different groups of buyers have defining demographics, geographics, and online behaviors, right? We can kind of put people into different buckets and then market to those people in different ways with the right messaging at the right time. And the way we do that is by using this company to essentially source those buyers. So if I'm walking into a house and I know that, it would fit one of those categories of buyers, I'm going to go to this company and say, these are the groups of buyers that I think are the highest likelihood of purchasing this property. They will then go and literally find the buyers that are looking in your area, looking in your price range, and that are engaging in online behaviors that lead that company to believe that person's getting ready to buy a house. Maybe they're researching schools in that area. Maybe they're looking at contractors in that area. They're using, online search tools or apps on their phone to look at real estate. All of that stuff is trackable. So essentially what we can do is find the buyers that are engaging in those behaviors and market your home to them directly. We create ads and we market your home to different groups of buyers using different messaging. It's always changing. It's a dynamic marketing plan. And the idea is that we don't want to just sit around and wait for another agent to show our listing. That's going to happen automatically because there's 8,000 agents and, a few of us on my team. So in all likelihood, another agent's likely going to sell the property just because of the numbers. But if you want to get the most money for your house possible, you need an agent that not only does a really good job of broadcasting the information, which happens automatically, you need an agent that is going to actively find buyers for your property using all of the data that's out there on all of us, creating ads, driving them to a site, and then converting them into buyers for your property. If an agent is really good at the marketing from the time you sign the agreement until the time the home goes on the market, and then from the time the home goes on the market until the time you are under contract with a buyer, and your price is right, your home's in good condition, we've had conversations about that, there is no reason why your home shouldn't still sell in a week or two. The average has gone up, right? We're looking at 50 days on the market-wide right now. But again, that study was pretty crystal clear that I read off last week, in that if you price your home well and you're working with an agent that understands marketing, really understands marketing and has the tools, the budget, the experience, the collective manpower on their team, There's no way a single agent can compete with what we do as a team to market our properties for sale. There's just aren't enough hours in the day. There's not enough manpower. And we've got big marketing budgets for our properties. That's why you're not going to see me on billboards. I'd rather take that money and invest it into my listings to create more activity, right? That's, I think, what you want out of a real estate agent. And then, of course, the other thing is, having an agent that is comfortable and confident enough in their ability and their experience to offer guarantees, to allow you to cancel your agreement if they're not walking the walk, if they're not producing results, which we do. We offer that to sellers. You can cancel your agreement at any time, among several of the other incentives that we offer. So if you're thinking of selling your house, interview an agent. Ask tough questions. Ask the question of how they are going to find a buyer for your house specifically. What are they going to do? What budget is associated with those marketing events? And then hold them accountable. Now, if you want more information on what we do specifically to market our homes for sale, as I mentioned, we've sold about 1,200 listings in the Charleston market. We've represented a seller successfully about 1,200 times. So we'd love to put that experience to work for you. If you're thinking of selling, give us a shot. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. Stick around for the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, where I'm going to tell you how to take all this information if you're a buyer and use it to your advantage. I want to finish the show with giving buyers some ammunition here. We've seen the market starting to change, whether that's just the seasonality of the market or the overall trend within the market. But it's pretty obvious to see that things are slowing down just a little bit. So as a buyer, how do we take advantage of this information? How do we use this to our advantage to try and get you a good deal? Now, remember, for the past few years, getting a good deal, quote unquote, really hasn't been a thing. It's been really hard for buyers to purchase property below fair market value, which is why a few years ago, I was saying on the show when interest rates were around 3% that you're not going to win against the seller. You're going to win against the bank. You are going to lock in an interest rate that we might not see again in our lifetime. Who knows? But a 3% or sub 3% interest rate is incredible. It is going to create a lot of wealth for people if they have the ability to maybe take their existing home and turn that into a rental property and then buy another house, because we've seen a massive increase in equity. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but if I'm a buyer in this market, I'm going to look at a few different things. I shared last show the statistics revolving around how much time it takes to sell a house, whether they're priced right or not. If it's priced right, it's selling in a week and they're getting 100% of their asking price, which is why we're still seeing multiple offer situations in some instances. A lot of it revolves around, of course, that specific home area price range and then whether the seller priced their home correctly or not with the help of a real estate agent. But a lot of them aren't. 26 out of every 100 homes do not sell the first time around. We've also got 33% of properties that remained on the market taking a price reduction. So we've got the majority of listings in our market is being overpriced right now. There's going to have to be an adjustment or negotiations that occur in order for that property ultimately to sell. So if I'm a buyer, I'm looking for properties that have been on the market for a little while, especially those that have not adjusted their price. Now, obviously, we as real estate agents have access to this, but you do as well. Plenty of websites out there will provide you with the listing history. Sometimes properties will come off the market and then they'll go immediately back on the market. And those sellers will think that, hey, I've got a new fresh start, right? Days on market resets. It's really not the case. All of the stuff that they do online is trackable. The MLS tracks it. All these other websites track that listing history. So you're not really fooling anybody if you cancel your listing and then put it right back on the market, thinking that it's going to be a fresh start for you as a seller. Maybe the fresh start is that you need an agent that really understands the market positioning and, like we just discussed, how to proactively promote your property to real buyers, right? We don't just wait for buyers to show up and go to one of these random websites and hope that they contact us. Of course, that happens, but we want to proactively find buyers for our properties. Now, again, if I'm a buyer, I'm looking at properties that have been on the market for a while that have not made a price adjustment. If they haven't sold in the first 2-3 weeks, chances are they're overpriced. So I'm going to use that to our advantage. The other thing to take into consideration here, and we're not supposed to talk about commissions, but I'm going to, is whether or not that seller is offering any concessions or compensation to the buyer agent. We've had some sellers that have said, hey, I don't want to pay a commission to a buyer agent. Ultimately, what's happening there, just so you know, a little peek behind the curtain here, is that if you're not offering compensation to a buyer agent, then that buyer has to then work with the listing agent, or that buyer has to compensate their agent directly. They are going to take it off of the purchase price of your house. Because realistically, and let's just call it like it is, all real estate is inflated 5-6-ish% to account for commissions, right? It's been that way for decades. So if you as a seller are not paying out a commission to a buyer's agent, more than likely that buyer's just going to take that off of their offered amount, because that would then mean that you as a seller are netting 2, 3, 4, whatever the percentage is, more than anybody else that had to pay a buyer agent. So they're pretty wise about that. If I'm a buyer and a property's been on the market for a while, then, you know, it's always frustrating as a listing agent when buyers do this, but frankly, it's a pretty darn good tactic. They'll make an initial offer. They might then come up a little bit with a counter offer, and then they'll stay there, and they'll probably disappear for a little while, and then they'll wait for the listing agent or the seller to go back to them, because that buyer or that agent knows that there's hardly anything else going on at that house. There's not a lot of activity, and they're kind of dangling that carrot, waiting for the seller to come back to them. It's a bit of a risky one, because as a buyer, if you really want that house, but you play that game, of course, somebody else could come in, make an offer, and the seller could take it. The seller doesn't owe you anything. Just like in a multiple offer situation, the seller dictates how they're going to handle that multiple offer situation. So I'm going to use the data that's available, the data that I shared on last show, to justify my offered amount. Because I do so much investing and because we've just sold so much real estate, I know how much things cost. And if there's deferred maintenance or repairs that are needed in relation to other properties that have sold, we'll of course take that into account with our offer as well. So if you're thinking of buying a house, if you're thinking of selling a house, investing in real estate, or maybe you have a property you'd like for us to manage for you through our property management company, reach out to us, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Check us out online, listingsincharleston.com, and check us out on YouTube and, you know, all socials. Just search for the Brian Beatty team. Thanks so much for listening, and you guys have a great weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.